Hello my dear friends, you're in the Military with Summary channel. In this video we're going to discuss the most important events that took place during the previous 12 hours. We have a lot of very interesting updates, so let's start. And first we're going to talk about Moscow, because this morning the most important updates are coming exactly from this area. Preliminary data: Moscow car explosion may be a serious attack. According to the preliminary information, the car explosion in Moscow was caused by an improvised explosive device. According to one theory, the improvised explosive device was planted under the car and detonated a few seconds after the car began moving. A 56-year-old man was seriously injured and remains in critical condition in intensive care. According to unconfirmed reports, he is a high-ranking officer, maybe a high-ranking officer of the armed forces of the Russian Federation. Later, we received another report: a car exploded in Moscow, possible assassination attempt on an officer. The explosion occurred after the car started moving in a parking lot around 7 a.m. in the Orekhovo-Borysovo district. The car caught fire, injuring the driver. He was trapped inside the car and doctors are fighting for his life. According to residents of the building and some media outlets, this might be an act of sabotage against the officer. And later, official sources confirmed, not just pro-Russian but also pro-Ukrainian sources confirmed, an assassination attempt in Moscow was carried out on the chief of the General Staff's department, General Sarvarov. Resources close to Ukrainian intelligence agencies are reporting that the terrorist attack in Moscow was carried out against Lieutenant General Vanil Sarvarov. He holds the position of chief of the operational training department of the General Staff of the Russian Armed Forces. So correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems that this is the higher ranked officer that was assassinated by Ukrainian special forces, that has been assassinated by the Ukrainian armed forces since the beginning of the special military operation. Now we see that most likely, and according to this attack, most likely we will not see any peaceful settlement of the conflict in coming days, weeks, or even months. The war will continue. Now let's discuss the situation on the ground, and first let's talk about the Sumy direction. During the previous 12 hours, pro-Russian sources published a video from the territory of the settlement of Grabovskaya. We will not watch the video due to some things that we are not allowed to show, but in this video we might see how Ukrainian soldiers were living on the territory of Grabovskaya and how in the final part of the video the Russians managed to capture Ukrainian soldiers. I would like to remind you that these days, according to pro-Ukrainian sources and according to neutral mappers and pro-Russian sources, the armed forces of the Russian Federation crossed the border around the settlement of Graborskaya, and now the Russians are advancing further in the western direction, and the clashes are taking place right now for the settlement by the name of Rayasnaya. Now let's move further and let's talk about the Kharkiv direction. The Russians during the previous 12 hours captured the settlement of Vilcha. This morning this information was confirmed by the group of forces north by their official channel. They stated that as a result of clashes, the settlement of Vilcha came under complete control of the armed forces of the Russian Federation. Based on the report published by this group, we adjusted the map. We believe that today the Minister of Defense of the Russian Federation will also confirm this information. Furthermore, the Russians continue advancing further in the area of the forest, the Sinelnikovo forest. During the previous 24 hours, the Russians attacked this territory with TOS flamethrower systems. We believe that Russians now are focused to take under control the village of Prilipovka and to improve their positions around the settlement of Gravskaya. So Russians want to get the river of Seversky Donets, and then Russians will advance further in the southern direction along the river of Seversky Donets towards the settlement of Verkhnya Pisarevka. Furthermore, now from these positions, Russians most likely will begin offensive operation, their major offensive operation in the direction of the settlement by the name of Belый Kolodez. So as you can see, the situation in the area of the city of Volchansk continue deteriorating. As for the city of Kupiansk and as for the central Kupiansk direction, during the previous 12 hours we haven't received anything special. But we received lots of important updates from the Sieversk-Slaviansk direction. During the previous 12 hours the map has been adjusted, as you can see. So this is the situation by the end of the 20th of December of 2025. This is the end of the 21st of December. The Russians, as you can see, improved their positions and they answered the settlement of Bandarne. And by the beginning of the 22nd of December of 2025, the Russians, as you can see, improved their positions significantly. And this information this morning was provided by pro-Ukrainian sources. According to them, the Russians managed to break through Ukrainian defense in the area of the villages of Kuzminovka, Fedorovka and Pazena, and the Russians approached the forest, huge forest. This one we're talking about, this forest on the way towards the settlement of Alexandrovka. So this forest is a well-fortified area that was prepared by the armored forces of Ukraine, and most likely there are going to be very heavy clashes for this territory. But if Russians take this forest, then they will face no barriers to move further almost until the Seversky Donetsk-Donbass canal. The Russians have already started bombing and attacking this territory with artillery and with those flamethrower systems, trying to prepare roads for possible attack. Furthermore, the Russians continue assault operation on the settlement of Zakitne. During the previous 12 hours, we received lots of videos from the eastern part of the settlement where we might see how Russians were attacking and FPV droning the positions of the armored forces of Ukraine on the territory of the settlement. So which means that the Russians continue advancing along TO 513 road with the purpose to establish complete control over the settlement. If Russians can establish complete control over the settlement, they will be able to restore a very powerful and very strong logistic road between the city of Liman and the city of Lysychansk. So we are talking about TO 513 road, which is a very important road in the Russian attempts to attack the city of Liman and in the Russian attempts to move further in the direction of the city of Slaviansk. Now let's discuss the situation in the area of the city of Konstantinovka. During the previous 12 hours, lots of attempts to improve their positions from the Russian side were recorded to the south of the settlement in the area of the Kliban-Bytskaya water reservoir. Several pro-Russian sources confirmed that Russians are trying to get the N20 roads, the intersection of the N20 and N32 roads. We're talking about this road. Furthermore, the Russians are advancing in the same direction from the settlement of Alexandra Kalinovka. So the Russians are trying to establish control over the territory till the settlement of Berystok, and we have a geolocation that confirms Russian progress and additional progress on the ground to the west of Plishevka. So now we see that the Russians are tasked to maintain the lines, to shorten the distances, and to take everything under control to the south and to the bottom of this red line. So we are talking about this territory. As for the Mirnograd-Pokrovsk agglomerations, during the previous 12 hours, we haven't received anything special. Now let's talk about the Zaporozhye direction. The Russians intensified their offensive operation. During the previous 12 hours, huge changes on the ground were recorded. So this is the city of Gulyai-Polye, and these are the changes on the ground between the dates. This is the situation by the end of the 20th, this is the 21st of December, and this is the morning of the 22nd of September. The Russians improved their positions in the southern part of the settlement, trying to get as close as possible to the western part, to the stronghold that is located along the Shevchenko Street. Furthermore, the Russians improved their positions in the northern part. So basically, we are entering the final stage of the battle for the city of Gulyai-Polye, and most likely this part of the battle will not take much time. This part of the battle would be finished very soon. Furthermore, according to pro-Russian sources, the armed forces of the Russian Federation improved their positions significantly on the Ukrainian side of the river of Gachul. So during the previous day, we received important changes. First, the Russians managed to take under complete control this dense network of the fortifications around the settlements of Kosovtseva and Ternovate. The Russians began attacking the positions of the armed forces of Ukraine in Ternovate with FPV drones. We received lots of videos how the Russians began attacking these theater with FPV drones, which means that the Russians are getting closer and closer. Furthermore, the Russians, according to pro-Russian sources, managed to improve their positions in the most southern part of the settlement of Andreevka. So these are the changes on the ground between the dates, and this video confirms that Russians are trying to take under complete control the Vidradne-Andreevka-Bratskoye road. The Russians can use this road further for the logistical purposes when they will try to attack deeper inside of in the direction of the city of Zaporozhye itself. As for the western Zaporozhye direction, the Russians also improved their positions. The sources are saying that the Russians began advancing from the settlement of Stepnogorsk in the eastern direction through this dense network of the fortifications. So few more trenches and strongholds were captured by the armed forces of the Russian Federation. I would like to remind you that Russians will continue offensive operation further in the eastern direction until they get the city of Orekhov from the northwest. At the same time, the Russians are trying to create better positions to the north of the city of Stepnogorsk. These are the changes between the dates. During the previous 12 hours, the Russians managed to secure this tree line, but I'm not sure whether the Russians are going to move further. As of now, they need to create, and they will try to create, a very strong defense line between the settlements of Primorska, Stepnogorsk and Magdalinovka, and they will try to hold their positions along this red line until the main Russian group will continue offensive operation towards the city of Orekhov. As for the region of Odessa, during the previous 12 hours, we received the report that Ukrainians are trying to find a solution how to restore the traffic through the village of Mayaki through the river of Dniester. The sources are saying that here we can see the photo allegedly shows a ferry being towed across the Dniester river to the village of Mayaki. So I would like to remind you that during the previous days, the Russians destroyed the bridge. Now the Ukrainians are trying to find a solution how to connect the western and the eastern banks of the river of Dniester. The sources reported that using this road, Ukraine receives up to 60% of fuel from the western countries. So if Ukrainians are not able to restore this bridge, this can lead to huge problems to the Ukrainian energy facilities and energy infrastructure. And that's it for the short video. Military with Summary channel reminds we condemn any violence in the world. Thank you for your watching. Subscribe to my channel, put your likes, join my Patreon, and have a good day. Bye-bye.